Hey, welcome at webinar 3 of H3 Society. This is week 3 and this week is all about creativity. Creating different options for your startup to solve your customers' problems. As you're used to by now, we have another experiment for you this week. Learning is all about doing, and you won't get nearly as much out of this course if you only passively consume information. So get out there and really start learning. Now that you have a solid take on your customer's problem after week 2, the third experiment is where you come up with a number of options to solve that problem. You get out there and show these options to actual people, and you'll see how they respond. Do the ideas resonate? Do they understand your solutions? Remember, it's not about being right, it's about being effective and building the bridge between what you want to solve and what your customers need. The most important thing to understand for this week is there is no single right solution. If you start out thinking that the solution you have in the back of your head is the only one, you're cheating yourself. Take a step back and consider different options will help you to see what you're doing in a new light. You might find out that there is a more interesting way to solve the problem for your customers that is much more lucrative. We'll go from understanding your problem to testing different possible solutions with customers in 3 steps. First, we generate lots of ideas very quickly and really return up the creativity. Then, we'll turn the remaining ideas into mini propositions for you to test by clustering. And finally, we'll see how we can filter out the most promising ideas from that huge pile of ideas. One of the reasons people sometimes think they are not that creative is because that they are trying to be efficient about it and only want to get the good ideas. And to do that, they decide to judge each new idea they get on its quality immediately. Turns out, that is the only thing you really should never do. Judging ideas is what blocks your idea generation engine. There are 3 tricks we'd like to share with you. The first trick is to batch your idea, generating and your judging of ideas. Just allow yourself to have a lot of random ideas for a period and only judge the quality of those ideas afterward. Just sit back and see where your creative mind is taking you. All the bad ideas have a lot of value in this process. They are the stepping stones that bring you to good ideas. There are no shortcuts. The second trick is to preload your creative mind. Your mind needs fuel to be creative. It's very hard to be creative on command without any preparation. So, put your creative mind on a varied information diet. Watch, listen, and read everything you can about the subject of your startup idea for a number of days. Let it settle and digest, and then turn on creative power. Your brain will be able to make tons of new associations and connections. The last trick is to interpret the output. Some of the ideas that you get will be vague, ambiguous, cryptic. That's okay. The creative mind thinks in metaphors and analogies. Instead of dismissing a vague idea on face value, turn it over in your mind. How could it connect to what you're trying to do? How could this puzzle piece fit? Now it's time to put it into practice. Get your team together and use the what-if questions in the course module to kickstart your creative process. With a team of 5 people, you should be able to hammer out 100 ideas in half an hour. No problem. Clustering ideas. Okay, so now you have a ton of ideas. Some are great, some are crappy. How to choose? It's too much work to dive into each and every one of them. So we need to trim it back to something like 5 to 10 ideas, max. The first step is to look at the big pile of ideas and to cluster them into 5 to 10 themes. What are ideas that are similar? Perhaps they are similar in the type of solution. Perhaps they are similar in the customer segment, and so forth. Try to make big, diverse clusters. For each cluster, try to come up with a cool name and a description for the product or service it describes. What is it called? What does the customer buy? In the course module, you'll find 8 questions you'll need to answer for each cluster. Each cluster is basically supposed to be a mini value proposition. It will end up like a rough draft of a possible solution. The best outcome is when all clusters are very different. Since you want to avoid your own bias and get your customers' reactions, it's good to see how they respond to very different approaches. Perhaps your pet solution will be favorite, or perhaps another approach will be a clear winner. We've seen countless times that the proposition we thought was the clear best choice was the one customers liked the least. Filtering ideas. Next, you should look at the mini propositions and see which ones makes the most sense to you and to your customer. Showing them all will take too much time. You need a top 3 or a top 5, probably. So one thing you can do is you can have a look at the design criteria you made earlier and see which clusters match best. Just vote with your team to determine the order of priority. Just make sure your top 3 keeps its diversity as well. Don't pick 3 similar ideas. You won't learn as much if you do that. So, your third experiment. Once you have your own priorities straight, you should start setting up your experiment number 3 and testing the ideas with customers. The most important thing is again to be prepared. Prepare a list of who you can have a call or a coffee with. Make sure you book their time, even if what you are going to talk about is mysterious still. Perhaps you need an excuse. Furthermore, prepare your top 3 ideas. Make sure you can explain each in 2 to 3 sentences and, if possible, find an appropriate picture or example. Prepare a short list of questions. Furthermore, for each interview, have one starter mini proposition that you lead with. That's the one you want to gauge interest for. Do a dry run with a colleague or an unexpected bystander to see if the questions work. And last but not least, do this with a team member. 2 observe more than 1. Divide roles. An interviewer and an observer/note taker. And remember, always try to find out from the user perspective. Now get creative. See you next week.